All right, folks, we just had Kraken call out the SEC. Let's get right on into it. A huge shout out to Eleanor Terrett for keeping us up to date on the lawsuit. So we have Kraken fighting back. The second largest crypto exchange has filed a motion asking the court to dismiss the SEC's case, which alleges the company is operating an unregistered securities exchange, broker-dealer, and clearing agency. A Kraken spokesperson tells Fox Business that today, we filed a motion asking the court to dismiss the SEC's case against Kraken. The law is clear. None of the assets in the SEC's complaint constitute investment contracts, and Kraken is not a securities exchange. The SEC's case rests on an expansive new theory that would effectively securitize a broad range of ordinary assets and commodities. In the SEC's view, essentially any commercial artifact that can rise or fall in value could be an investment contract. This approach would permit the SEC to commandeer expansive new authority over the U.S. economy, just as Congress is debating how that authority should be allocated amongst the federal agencies. Today, we ask the court to hand this power back to Congress where it belongs. And this is what we've been noticing with the SEC, right? With their interpretation of the Howey test, almost anything becomes an investment contract that you buy with the expectation that maybe someday it might go to a higher price. For example, wifey, she likes to buy really special bamboo sleep sacks and stuff for the kids. And some of these, right, we use them and then we're done with them, we grow out of them, and it's time to sell them back, right? I can't hand down the pink sleep sack down to my son. I mean, I guess I could if, I'll leave that alone. But you guys get my point. She buys a sleep sack that's, whatever it is, these are expensive freaking sleep sacks. Trust me, whatever they are, $30. And then they actually put out in these pajamas that this company puts out that she always buys from, they put out, a limited drop. And then sometimes you can resell them for a higher price. So are those bamboo pajamas a security? Under the SEC's interpretation, yes, they are, right? With this common enterprise, right? You're buying into the story behind this brand and you buy it for low and you're trying to sell it higher and you sell the $30 pajamas for $50. This is the interpretation where the SEC is just making everything a security. As Kraken notes right here, it's an expansive interpretation of the law, while at the same time Congress is highlighting that this should be in the hands of other, federal agencies, and they specifically call them commodities, which is very important. The tokens in and of themselves are not an investment contract, and I'm going to show you in the next tweet how they specifically cite the Ripple case as well to make that point. As we know in the SEC case with Ripple, they, Judge Torres ruled that XRP in and of itself was not a security. And as I've been saying, many of these tokens do constitute what would be the definition of a commodity. You can use them as currencies as well, and they do meet the definitions of a currency in many aspects, but then you also have a commodity. You have something with utility and intrinsic value of some sort of fashion, even though it's a digital asset. It's not in physical form. It's a commodity though still, right? And where the Judge Torres ruling in the Ripple case found that there was an investment contract securities offering was specific contracts to institutions that had expectations, time periods, lockups, and different stipulations tied up in it that made that investment contract the unregistered security, not XRP. See, Ripple could have done similar contracts with other assets besides XRP, and the investment contracts that they made was the securities offering, according to Judge Torres' ruling. Now, let's go to this next clip here. This is Bill Morgan, and huge shout out to Bill. He's been giving us good insight on the SEC Ripple case, and he's been chiming in on some of the other developments as well, a lawyer from Australia, but nonetheless, very knowledgeable in this regard. And he notes that it's interesting how Kraken cites and summarizes a key part of the Ripple case. Kraken's position is that securities entail a certain relationship between an issuer and buyer, but the SEC shows no relationship between the issuers of tokens, which the SEC calls crypto asset securities, their new favorite term, such as Algorand, Cardano, and Matic, sold on the Kraken exchange and Kraken's customers. Kraken's primary exchange platform trading is blind bid-ask, think Ripple programmatic sales, which Judge Torres correctly found were not investment contracts. In fact, some of those Ripple programmatic sales happened on the Kraken exchange. Go figure. The summary from SEC versus Ripple alleges this lack of issuer and buyer connection. It gives 5 reasons showing, not to be confused with treason. I think that was a typo, even though some would argue that what the SEC is committing would be treason to our capital markets. But nonetheless, it gives 5 reasons showing this lack of connection, and specifically one of those grounds is no expectation of profits from Ripple's efforts, as Judge Torres found. Kraken is extending this to the 11 issuers of the tokens in this case, which the SEC alleges are crypto asset securities. You can see the problem for the SEC is that if the Torres summary judgment decision stands and is not successfully appealed, massive impediment to a settlement of the SEC versus Ripple case. So we are continuing to watch as the SEC gets a little bit of pushback, and in fact, big fat L's in some case, right? With this debt box case, they are about to get sanctioned by the judge, hopefully, right? That's what we're hoping, is that the judge literally slaps sanctions on these SEC lawyers. And we just highlighted how one of the SEC's prominent lawyers that they had representing them in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit as well, just left the SEC after leaving in shame after taking a massive loss in the Ripple case, and is now moving to a white shoe law firm from Wall Street. Just like Bill Hinman, just like Jay Klein, just like everybody else in the gang. It's one big club and we ain't in it. And I ain't trying to be in it either because it's corrupt as hell. And in fact, I believe that if we ever get any sort of accountability, these guys are going to be on the run. And God willing, we get some accountability, and God willing, we get some victories here, because we have this administration, we have this SEC until the next administration comes in, until Congress wants to get their act together. America's dealing with the courts. This is simply where we're at. And as I've been saying, I humbly stand behind John Deaton, one of the generals on the legal battlefield, as we fight the good fight against these corrupt criminals is what they are. And sure, some of them maybe think they have good intentions, right? But at the upper echelon, you can see it's all buddy. It's all one big gang. It's all one big group, and we ain't in it. And now it's almost as if they're just doing a final push. As they get exposed, they have no shame, and they just continue the push, continue the attacks. And in this case, they listed some, 11 issuers of tokens that Kraken was offering as a security. And now the good news is that we see the Ripple case being used as a precedent, and others like Kraken using it in their defense right here. And as I said, this comes full circle. Now the spotlight shines down on XRP, the standard. There's a reason why I got that nickname. And the fact that Ripple is going to set the precedent for how to distribute tokens in a way that doesn't constitute an investment contract. That's all that's left to be decided in the SEC versus Ripple case, is Judge Torres is going to rule. Yes, all of the institutional sales, including those to on-demand liquidity partners before 2020, those were all securities investment contracts, according to Judge Torres. What we're now waiting to see if Judge Torres will include is all of the post-complaint, or all of the sales that took place after the lawsuit was filed. But Ripple, obviously selling off billions of dollars worth of XRP since the lawsuit was filed against them, clearly they feel pretty comfortable with how they've structured those contracts. That's all that's left to be decided. Remedies phase ends April 29th, and then we expect Judge Torres' ruling to come after that. I think because there's so little to decide, there's so much on this case, she knows the attention and how many people are watching it. I think that she's ready to come soon. She's going to come quick, and it's going to be a very strong ruling in Ripple's favor that, no, you guys did structure your contracts the proper way. You're good to go. That's how you can distribute XRP to institutions going forward. You have no investment contract. You're good to go. XRP in and of itself is not a security. And what happens next? Ripple flips the switch, and you guys know the rest of the story. If you appreciate the updates, you guys know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. God bless. Thank you so much. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.